kind of feel like Iron Man a little bit, where the drone is coming towards me and I'm like, come here, and the drone will just kind of land in my hand. I want to state that this drone is pretty awesome. There are a few things that I don't like about it, so I'm going to talk about that right now. So the first thing I don't like about the DJI Flip is the fact that even though it's tiny, again, the iPhone right here, it's not exactly a drone that fits in your pocket. It's tiny, but because it's so awkwardly shaped, you're not going to be able to fit this into your jean pockets, your khakis, your dress, whatever. You're actually going to have to like put this in a purse or a sling bag or a book bag because, again, it's just so awkwardly shaped. Another thing I don't necessarily like about the drone is the fact that it's quite loud. Compared to the DJI Mini 4 Pro, this just makes a louder decibel type hum to it. I don't have one of those decibel readers, so I can't really tell you how loud it is compared to the DJI Mini 4 Pro, but check this sound difference between the DJI Flip and the DJI Mini 4 Pro. The DJI Mini 4 Pro has a much more, I guess you could call it like a lower octave hum, whereas the DJI Flip, that thing is loud. I've learned to be so dependent on my 360 optical avoidance on my Mini 4 Pro. The Mini 4 Pro has all these sensors on the back, on the front, and it just kind of has sensors to give that 360 obstacle avoidance, whereas this one, it doesn't have it. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, it just means that a clumsy pilot like myself is now even more clumsier. Sure, there are going to be ways to mitigate the clumsiness of people like me by having these propeller guards, but I guess it's kind of a give and take. You have the propeller guards and have no 360-degree obstacle avoidance, or you don't have the propeller guards with 360-degree obstacle avoidance. Because if you're flying the DJI Mini 4 Pro and you hit something without a propeller guard, it's going down. Whereas you fly something on this particular drone and you hit something, it's still going to fly around. I was a little bit scared and kind of sketched sometimes when I would send it to go do like a droney or a rocket around me, and then worry that it would run into like a telephone pole or a bush or a tree because it didn't have a means to see what's on the side of it. It didn't have a means to sense what's on the side of it. Whereas the Mini 4 Pro, it has these sensors here, which is going to give it that 360 obstacle avoidance. And if I was going to do the same camera smart features, it would either bypass or stop, or it would stop itself from crashing into whatever it is. And so you just have to fly with more caution with the DJI Flip. It's not to say that it's going to 100% crash, because again, it has the propeller guards. I don't know, for me, I'd rather have a drone that can stop itself and avoid a collision completely versus colliding with an object and hoping that it doesn't get stuck in a tree or, you know, fall down from 15 feet in the air. So now let's talk about this controller here. This is not going to be DJI's most premium controller out there. There's other types of controllers that DJI does use, like the motion controller or this controller right here, which is going to be the RC2. But you can see here that this controller is pretty basic. You can see here that there's going to be some thumbsticks, which are housed underneath, very similar to how other DJI controllers are. You take the thumbsticks out from underneath like so, and then you go ahead and pull it out, and then you screw it in like this, because there's a little kind of thread there, and you screw it in to the actual drone controller kind of joystick area. And don't be like me and drop it in the sand or on the dirt, because this joystick is a pain to find if you are like trying to find it in the grass, because don't ask me how I know. So now that we have the thumbsticks installed, you can see here that it has some basic navigation buttons here, a return to home function, a different type of flying mode, for C for cinematic, N for normal, and then S for sports. And then we have the power button. So if you press that, you see that it gives an LED indicator, gives the controller's battery charge. On the top side of the controller, you can see on the right-hand side, this is going to be kind of like a camera shutter / recording button. And then on the left-hand side, you can see there's a scroll wheel. This is going to allow you to control your camera angles, so that way your camera can go up and down. And then continuing on the top, you have this kind of weird design here. here. And so that's for a very specific reason. When you look at this controller, there's going to be a little latch here. I'm not sure if the camera is going to pick it up, but there's a little ledge right there that you pick up and then you push up, or you pull up, and it opens up to something like that. And so this is super important because of the fact that this is where you're going to be able to see your drone's actual camera feed. You're going to need an extra display such as your cell phone or extra phone or whatever, and then you're going to have to use your phone to place it inside like so, and then kind of like finagle it in there. So that's what it's going to look like. I think this design used to work pretty well back in the days before the DJI RC2 controller came out. I want to state that as time goes on, phones get bigger. Now you have to keep into consideration that when you're using the controller and the phone like this, that you have the weight of the controller as well as the weight of your phone. And that's just sometimes going to be a little bit too heavy when you're flying. And then you also have to keep in mind that not every phone case is going to fit on this thing, because look at it. You only have that small slit of space where your phone is actually able to rest on it. And so if you have one of those huge like armor protection tank-like cases, it may not fit here. You may actually have to take your phone out of the case, and then you're going to be able to install it more comfortably, which again is fine for me, but there are some super clumsy people out there where they may actually be like, oh, I'm gonna take it out of the case, and they'd be like, bloop, 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 and then your phone crashes, and then your day is just kind of ruined. And so as you have it like this, you aren't done, because the phone doesn't connect to your controller via Bluetooth. It actually has a wire on the back end over here, these two little rectangles, and plug into your phone. So there's a actual hard wire that your phone is actually going to be using, so that way you can have it connect to the drone for video feed, that is. And so here you can see that I'm going to plug it in, and so that's how it's going to look. You're going to have a controller, a wire that connects to the controller, and then the actual wire that connects into your phone. I mean, it works, right? It's not the most efficient way of getting your drone feed, because you do all that if you're trying to catch like a video of the Orca or I don't know, UAPs or whatever. You have to do all that setup. Whereas if you have the RC2 like this one, you turn the drone on, you turn the battery on, and you are flying instantly. Because if you do have the RC2 controller, you can actually pair this thing to the DJI Flip, which is what I recommend. If you are, I don't know, doing like an event, or you're on vacation and you have your DJI Mini 4 charging, and then you have your DJI Flip ready to fly, you could use both drones with this controller, except obviously it'll be one drone at a time. You can't fly them simultaneously. But in a perfect world situation, the DJI Flip is actually designed, it's promoted, it's advertised to not have to rely on a controller to fly. While it can be better to capture those more cinematic shots, those more aerial, like breathtaking shots, you don't necessarily have to fly the drone with the controller to get the basic shot. Now, I did use the drone with both controllers, and honestly, I'd have to say that I just like the RC controller. The built-in monitor, or the built-in screen, it just makes things so convenient, because when you're using this one, and there's nothing really wrong with this one, it does everything it's supposed to, but you just have to attach your phone to it, and then you have to attach the wires. And I mean, if you're, like I said, you're trying to capture that orca whale jumping out of the water, you want to get your drone up in the air as fast as possible. And the RC controller can do that. Whereas this one, you're like, let me take out my phone. Let me attach the wire. Does my phone have enough charge to connect to this? Now, one of the things that DJI really just blew my mind on is going to be the fact that you can fly this DJI Flip through your phone, through the DJI Fly app, and it's actually quite easy to do that. You're able to do all of your kind of smart features, your rocket, your drone, so on and so forth. You're able to pilot up, down, left, right, circles. I mean, do everything you could do with these controllers. And honestly, it's pretty cool because you don't necessarily have to have a dedicated remote control anymore to fly the drone. You could fly it via its smart features, or you could fly it off of your phone. It does feel a little weird to fly it off of your phone. I did notice that when I was trying to fly it with the app, that I didn't feel like I was actually flying it. When you accelerate on the controller, you kind of have like that mental feeling that you are pressing something. Whereas if you're accelerating on your phone screen, I mean, you're just swiping on a smooth surface. So, I mean, you know, it's good, I think, best for continuity, but not as a main way to fly your drone. So to turn the drone on, there are two ways to doing that. You could press on the power button on the right-hand side, or you could extend the propellers, and then you're gonna see kind of like the propellers kind of wake itself up, and then you're going to hear the little noise, and that's how you start the drone up, you power the drone on. And one of the things that I don't really like about this drone is the fact that the back portion here, on mainly the back propeller guards, there's no real legs on the bottom of it. There isn't any of these things right here. These are the front propellers, whereas the back propellers, it's kind of just like sitting on the propellers. And the reason why I don't like it is because I don't always want to catch this drone, because that's how DJI markets it. You can catch a drone with your hand, which it does a great job at. But I don't always want to catch my drone. And if I'm going to land it on grass, or if I'm going to land it somewhere, the chances are of something getting in between the propellers is pretty high, because if this is grass, the propeller is going to sit on the grass like that, and it doesn't matter how short the grass is, it's going to hit the propellers, which causes an issue when landing, but it causes a bigger issue when you're trying to take off. So again, very situational, because DJI is saying, hey, you can actually fly and launch this drone from your hand. You don't have to place it on the floor, the ground, the beach, the sand, whatever. You could actually just launch it right here, which is it works. A cool thing that I did notice about landing this though is the fact that it doesn't matter how you launch the drone, if you launched it with the controller or if you launched it off of your hand. If you're piloting this drone by using the smart features, or if you're piloting the drone by using the controller, if you hold your hand out like this, it's automatically going to find your hand and it's going to land. And so I got kind of like bullyish. I was doing some drone bullying for science, obviously, and I wanted to see that if I held my hand out like this and then the drone started to land, and then I, sneeze and I have to cover up my nose, what happens to the drone? Does it just continue to do this? It actually stops. So I actually held my hand out a few times while the drone was landing, and I took my hand away, the drone would return to a hovering status. Then I put my hand back out and it started to land, and I took my hand away, and it continued to kind of just repeat the process of landing versus hovering, which is just a cool kind of safety feature, or kind of like a self-preservation mode for the drone, because it has those sensors underneath that are going to allow for it to know, is it going to be landing in your hand or is it not? So in order to turn off the drone, you could either turn off the drone manually by pressing on this button right here next to the LED lights there, or you could simply just fold it in. The camera quality, again, is going to be so similar, if not almost identical to the Mini 4 Pro, and it is truly impressive. If you're going to be flying it on the RC controller, or your phone on the regular controller, or if you're going to be flying it on your phone directly, the camera quality is just really, really good. You're able to shoot at 4K with 60 frames per second, slow-mo, and I think that's really awesome, because the compromise between having a really high-end camera drone versus a portable drone, the compromise just gets smaller and smaller as DJI continues to innovate. So now, looking at the two cameras here is the DJI Flip's camera, and then here is the Mini 4 Pro's camera. They look almost identical, and that's because they almost are. You will notice that the Mini 4 Pro has an extra kind of like function right here, a little bit more mechanics right there, whereas the DJI Flip doesn't. You see the difference down here? It's kind of just like empty. So, okay, let's see again. You see the difference between the bottom portion of the camera? And that's because this drone, the DJI Flip, does not shoot in vertical format. Whenever you're flying this drone, it's stuck like this. Yes, it's a gimbal. Yes, it takes really smooth videos and pictures and whatnot, but it doesn't physically rotate as if it was the Mini 4 Pro. So the Mini 4 Pro can have the camera kind of adjust like this, so that way it can shoot vertically or it can shoot horizontally. And that's just kind of a unique feature. But this one, if you see here, I'm gonna try and do it. Yes, it tilts pretty far, but it doesn't go full vertical, meaning that if you are a TikToker or Instagrammer or a YouTube Shorts person and you're trying to use this drone in a vertical format, you will probably just have to record horizontally and then crop it out. while it is capable of doing some of the things like the Mini 4 Pro does, there's also some things that it can't. So for instance, the DJI Mini 4 Pro has a level 5 wind resistance, meaning that it is able to withstand winds with XYZ amount of whatever. And then same thing for the DJI Flip. It has a level 5 wind resistance. I honestly don't feel like the DJI Flip is or was as capable of flying around the beach or just in some more windier areas as the Mini 4 Pro. The battery of the DJI Flip was actually quite impressive. I wasn't able to get like the second by second details of the DJI Flip's battery life, but when I did take it to the lighthouse at the beach, it did fly for a decent amount of time. Because this is a beginner drone, I kind of want to get this concept out of your head because this is the concept in mind. I feel like when I first purchased this, it was somewhat along the lines of, oh, this is for younger people, kids, teenagers. And I felt like it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you know, it's kind of gimmicky. And in some ways it is, but I was actually truly impressed because the whole fly by yourself, the whole hand launching thing, it's actually quite intuitive. I mean, there are times when I just wanted to launch the drone, have it follow me, or I wanted it to be my cameraman and I need it to be on like a floating tripod type thing. It's actually pretty cool. So you ever feel like you're being followed? So like I guess you could call it the smart features where you press the button and then it flies off and does its thing. It's actually really easy to use. It's really cool, and I kind of feel like Iron Man a little bit, where the drone is coming towards me and I'm like, come here. And the drone will just kind of land in my hand. I don't know, it's like DJI aerial magic or something like that, but it's just really cool. And so that just kind of becomes even cooler because this drone actually becomes a real, just like another drone that you would fly from the DJI series when you connect it to a controller. So on the side here is actually going to be where you have those quick setting options, the droney, the rocket, the follow me, the tripod, I forget the actual naming convention, but it's just as simple as that. You press it, it has like a verbal cue to say it's on whatever setting, and then when you find the setting you want, you press and hold.
3, 2, 1.
So one of the things that I learned about one of these smart features is if you're going to launch it, let's say you're going to do rocket or droney, you pretty much have to stay in the same location because the drone is going to come back to pretty much where you were. It does have a tracking capability within the camera, but for best performance and best results, you definitely want to make sure that if you are launching it over here, you stay over there. And then that's not going to be 100% true for all of the smart features because of the fact that, let's say if you're selecting follow, it's not going to be stationary because it's going to follow you, which hopefully you're not stationary either. The follow function is actually really cool. It does feel like you have your own cameraman. However, again, just because I think it's the design of the propellers, the drone isn't as smooth as you would expect it to be, which in some ways, I know I'm playing devil's advocate here, I mean, it's good to kind of have like that first person shaky camera type look, but then if you're looking for that slow, smooth, cinematic look, it's not going to do that well if it's in a windy situation. Now, these propeller guards are not the end of the DJI Flip. The propeller guards are there for a reason. And again, that's why I'm just gonna reemphasize the fact that the DJI Flip is really for those kind of beginner drone pilots. Whereas once you get comfortable with, piloting your drone, you can then graduate to a more sophisticated drone. All right, so now that I've had the DJI Flip for a little bit of time, I didn't get to fly it around as much as I would have liked to because it's snowing here in Seattle. And I honestly don't want to get the drone all like messed up and wet and all that stuff before I even had a chance to take it on a vacation. So I didn't really get to do all of the tests and get all the cool scenic shots and everything just because of that. But based off of my initial impressions and review of this drone, the DJI Flip is very beginner friendly. If you're watching this video, you probably have some type of predisposition as to which drone you're trying or wanting to buy. You're just kind of needing that last opinion to justify whatever means purchase you're going to make. And so if I was going to say, is the DJI Flip worth it? The answer is yes, if and only if you don't have another drone. If this was your only drone, this is your very first drone, or this is the drone that you wanted for Christmas, your birthday, Valentine's Day is coming up, it's a perfectly good beginner's drone. And the reason why I'm saying that is just because it's cheaper. This drone bundle that I purchased off of Amazon was $499 USD. This one that I bought from the DJI store itself was over $1,000. And sure, I didn't buy the Fly More combo with the DJI Flip, but even if I was going to buy the Fly More combo, it's still cheaper than the Fly More combo on the Mini 4 Pro. And so when it comes down to functionality, when it comes down to performance, when it comes down to form factor, I mean, you know, those are all kind of subjective based off of what you're going to use it for, what you need it for, things like that. Most of the rules and regulations are still the same. But the thing is like, how much do you want to make your wallet bleed? Do you want to go ahead and buy one of the Mini 4 Pros and have a kind of bulletproof, future-proof drone for the next few years? Or do you buy a DJI Flip because it's more economical, where you give away a little bit more features and capability? All right, so I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you think that the DJI Flip is the drone that you're going to be getting, or if you're going to be sticking with the Mini series. I personally believe that I'm going to be utilizing my Mini 4 Pro more often than my DJI Flip, and I will use my DJI Flip for more of the situations when I don't want to fly a drone with a controller. Thanks for watching.